Well, let's talk about Earth history and natural history, and then you'll know what dietary facts are. The very first life form on this planet was blue-green algae. Blue-green algae created oxygen. You and I would not be sitting here today without that great ancestor. So that was our first. Then second came the sea algae, the sea vegetables at the bottom of the oceans. Remember, the Earth was one big ocean at that point. There was nothing but ocean. And so the second life form was sea vegetables. Now when land came up, and I presented this here at The Real Truth About Health 2 days ago, that was Australia. It's 1 million years older than any other landmass on Earth, the continent and country called Australia. Then the first thing that grew, the algae evolved into grasses and the related seeds. So when you see a tree outside, it was originally from a grass. You see a flower, it was originally from a grass. And you see it was originally from algae and grass. So if you were going to eat the perfect way, and emotions about food, and ethnicity about food, and taste was not on the table, you should be consuming those 3 foods. The first life form, the second life form, and the third life form. Now, beyond the fact they created life, they were the foundation, the table, the base of life, they also have the highest protein, the highest vitamins, the highest minerals, the highest essential fats, the highest hormones, the highest oxygen, the highest phytochemicals, and the highest enzymes. And hold on, because as nutritional science evolves, we're going to discover other things that we've yet to discover. Remember, nutritional science is only 90 years old this year. So we're a relatively new science. And although Hippocrates spearheads the progressive health food movement and health movement in the world, the reality is we're still on a constant quest to learn more and to develop more and have to look and cherry pick the best of sciences. But we don't get stuck on biological science and medical science. Most of that is paid for, we call it checkbook science, by special interest. We look at natural science. We look at the evolution of man. We look at how people's intestine, we look at the big picture. I don't get pigeonholed into just the latest research out of biological and nutritional science. That would be nonsense, and it would harm the people we work with. So when we talk about the 2 disorders called osteoporosis and arthritis, I'm going to go on 2 different tracks. Number 1, osteoporosis is lack of weightlifting, weight-bearing exercise. It is not a calcium deficiency. When I've been using the most sophisticated nutritional test over decades, we find that only 1 out of 125 women actually lack calcium. It's a very rare, something that you miss. Number 2, what we do know is that with the thousands and thousands of women I've worked with osteopenia, pre-osteoporosis or osteoporosis, even if they eat exactly like I tell them, even if they take the supplements, which we're now going to mention that I tell them, if they don't lift weight, they don't get better. So it's a weight lifting deficiency. That's why it's not easy to correct, because most people aren't willing to lift weight and progressively more weight, within reason, depending upon your age, and maintain that throughout your life till the day you die, hopefully at 120. The next thing you have to know is that the most important deficiencies we discover, or even if you don't have deficiencies, the things you should have exceptional amounts of, are silica. Number 2, biotin, a protein, strontium, and in some cases magnesium oil that you rub on the outside of your body to relax the muscle structure and help the progression of bone development. So that would be the 3rd window I want to look through. And recognize it's not a normal condition. When I was teaching this years and years ago, there was one doctor that kept haunting me and saying I was wrong. It's a calcium deficiency. And he happens to work in Los Angeles, has a booming practice, and a lot of the Hollywood types go to him. And he came to me about 15 years ago and said, Brian, I'm ashamed I was wrong. And I said, how did you finally figure it out? He said, the women who go to the gym and they eat perfect, they even eat like you tell them, Brian. sometimes. They're eating salad all day, they're eating greens all day. They come here at 35 and 40 and 45 years old with full blast osteoporosis because at the gym, they only do aerobic exercise. They're little thin people, they're not interested in weight, anything but weight, and they don't go into lift weights. He said they all end up, and then I have heavy, heavy, heavy women that are couch potatoes, eating potato chips all day long and drinking soda. And rarely do I find them having osteoporosis. Isn't that interesting? Why? Because when you're carrying weight, even if it's your own weight, literally, you have resistant exercise going on. Now, in that case, by the way, you'll end up with a stroke, a heart attack, diabetes, whatever else you may get. So we're not suggesting get overweight to not get osteoporosis, but what we're doing is making a very valid point. I've seen people in their 90s reverse osteoporosis, and not once, but often. In their 80s commonly, 70s commonly. And that's why I've been lifting weights since I was a boy in my 30s. When we talk about weightlifting, let me clarify. The traditional way is lifting, dumbbells and weights and machines. Nautilus invented the machines. Now you have a wide variety globally of these machines. That's one way, and it's one way I do that. But body weight, by the way, is just as good. The strongest athletes are swimmers and gymnasts, so you know that. Pound for pound, they're much stronger than power lifters who look bigger, who have bigger muscles. They have elasticity, flexibility, but let me preface this by saying that they are serious about body weight lifting. They're pulling themselves up, they're doing dips, they're doing front of their chest, they're doing back of their chest. And this is a 2-3 hour routine that people are doing. When I'm in the gym 3 days a week, it's 3 hours that I'm in the gym. And reason being is it's a small part of it's 24 hours in a day, 7 days in a week, and I'm spending 9 hours or 10 hours at a gym a week. That's nothing. It's a fractional part of it. My great-great-grandparents spent a lot more in a gym called farms. They were plowing, they were lifting, they were stretching, they were doing aerobic exercise, and they didn't have an option. The option was death or farming, so they chose farming. And so everyone, until the last 4 or so generations around the world, did not have to go to a gym to lift weight, did not have to go and do aerobic exercise. All of this was a natural occurring process just by living on the planet Earth. And we are experimenting in ourselves. We're sitting on chairs. Look at the World Health Organization that said, by the way, if in your job 8 hours a day you sit in a chair, you reduce your lifespan by a minimum of 5 years after several years of doing that. So we've got to get back to the way our bodies evolved, the way our bodies are meant to function and be utilized. We're not doing that today. Those of us who exercise a lot compared to the rest of the population, it's a drop in the bucket compared to what everyone did before. Everything I talk about is based on 2 things, a lot of experience and science. Now I come to it in 2 ways. Sometimes I have really strong opinions from observation with hundreds of thousands of people, and then I find the science to support it, and that happens often. Or I read science and it opens my mind to something I'd never thought about, and then I employ it. And if it works, maintain it at that point. So what I've learned, the number 1 ingredient in preventing disease and premature aging is attitude. Number 1, hands down, it stands 2 miles ahead of everything else. If your attitude's not positive, if you don't have a purpose, if you don't have a passion, if you don't have a reason, you don't have a contribution, you're going to sabotage your life. That's why at Hippocrates and when I travel the globe, I hope to motivate people to take back their life, to become happy members of our society, to understand why you're here, rather than be a tennis ball that just being bounced back and forth, and you're just happy you have a shelter and food to eat, and that's not a life. That's not a passionate life. And I think the next 4, it's hard to say these are in order, but I would have to say it maybe edges out by a fraction of is food. And everything I'm now going to talk about, if you don't do, you die. You actually die if you don't do this. So if you don't eat food, and I could ask any of you, if you don't trust what I'm saying, to volunteer your body to science. We'll lock you in a closet, just give you water, and keep you there for several months. And we all come to observe. We can bring the cameras in and show. We open the door. What are we going to find? We're going to find a dead body, because you're going to starve to death. Now, does that not mean, if you're not nourishing your body with all the essential nutrients that you don't get unless you're eating healthy food, that you're partially dead? You're aging prematurely? Your immune system is weakened? You're more vulnerable and volatile to disease? Of course it does. Survival of the fittest. Darwin was absolutely correct. You know, the lion chases the weak guy and stops the weak guy first. And you're the weak guy if you're not nourished. Now, equally important is exercise. This was hard for me. It was hard enough for me to change my so-called lifestyle, because I thought I was perfectly fine, other than the fact I was obese. I thought I was fine. I thought I was fine because everyone around me was the same. Everyone did the same thing. Everyone ate the same nonsense. I hated exercise. I used to actually think people who were jocks and athletes, something was loose in their head. Why would they be kicking a ball? What's so interesting about that? As I was smoking cigarettes. You know, so exercise is as important. You know, a fraction of an inch difference. A fraction of an inch. And we've already mentioned it has to be resistant exercise, whatever that means to you. Serious body weight, or weightlifting, or combinations as I do of all of these things. And it's got to be aerobic exercise to flush the body, to bring new stem cells up, to rebuild healthy tissue, hard tissue, bones, or organ system. It's got to be stretching, and the older we get, the more you need to stretch. I even noticed myself in my late 60s, as much as I exercise, as much as I eat like a saint, as much as my attitude is positive as it could possibly be, I have repetitive motion. My body's not what it was at 50 years old or 40 years old, unless I constantly stretch. So today I was at the gym for 3 hours, and one of the things I did is I took bands, and I kept stretching back till the point it wasn't comfortable. It didn't hurt, but it wasn't comfortable. And we've got to constantly do, because as we age, repetitive motion brings us in. Now next is socialization, community. That has everything to do from work. Is a work that you do fulfilling? If not, why are you doing it? Well, I've got to make a living. No, you don't have to make a living. You have to make a life. And if you're not happy, you're not going to be happy at home. You're not going to have a happy family life. You're not going to have a happy anything. You've got to create community in what you do. Impassioned existence with life. Number two, you have to have a social life. What we do know, overwhelming. There's never been data that doesn't show us that people live longer when they have a social life, no matter what you eat. Now, can you imagine eating healthy food and exercising? Now you have a happy life. You have friends, you have family, you associate, you read, you're interested, you're engaged. People live longer. Even having dogs, we know you live longer. They've done study after study after study, dogs, cats, and even fish. It's dependency and interdependency. And I also believe that there's a spiritual part of this process. And I'm not going to talk about religion, you know. I don't care what religion it is, and this may offend some of you out there. I don't care. I've never been much interested in that. The fact is, I've seen every brand work. But you've got to have some belief that it's not only you alone, you know, the burden of life on you, that you're part of a larger system. And whatever that looks like, I don't care what you call it, and what the God looks like. And it doesn't have to even be a God sometimes. You know, some scientists I know get this. I mean, I was, for a period of time in my life, an atheist. Because everything I was taught about religion was nasty. You know, God was sort of mean, and I was bad, and I said, well, I want nothing to do with that. And then I started to study biology and science and watch recovery and anatomy and immunity and how this whole thing worked, and I realized, my God, this is an unbelievable system. Now, there has to be a purpose, a reason, a blueprint, and I call it quantum human biology, but the reality is we are part of something greater than us. And most of the time we just have to relax and let go. And the answers come to us. And I have to listen to this myself, because too often my intellect is trying to supersede my instinct, and instinct should always be listened to first.